Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Adventures Travel Club television show. Betty and I find ourselves in
Abu Simbel. Yes, yes.
What a wonderful place this is, isn't it?
A dream come true.
Is everybody here? Yeah. Are you ready to start?
Yes, let's go.
Ready to roll.
Welcome to Abu Simbel. Now we are going to visit two temples here in Abu Simbel. These temples were built by Ramses II, the greatest pharaoh, the king who ruled over Egypt in 19th dynasty, 1300 BC. The original location was 200 meters from the new site. They were down below. After building the high dam in 1961, the level of the water raised up and the temples were going to be flooded. So we decided to move the temples up here. They first built a cover dam in front of the temples to hold the water back. Then they cut the temples into pieces. The two temples were cut into 2,000 pieces. They numbered them and moved them piece by piece and rebuilt them as they were before exactly. Originally, the temples were cut into a solid mountain. They had not been built stone by stone, but the new site was flat. So they created these artificial mountains above them, giving the original formation. They built a concrete dome above it. First, when they started saving the temples, the mountain was cut and taken away. The bodies of the temples moved and rebuilt here, put in the same position, facing to the same direction, the same relationship between them. After that, they built a concrete dome above each temple, and they transported the outer blocks of the original mountain and put them on top of the domes. It took 5 years, from 1963 to 1968, and cost $36 million. Egypt paid 12 million, United States 12, and the rest of the world $12 million. Ramses built this temple for himself, dedicated to God Ra, the sun god, and the other temple we are going to see later for his wife Nefertari, dedicated to goddess Hathor, goddess of beauty, love, dancing, and music. The facade is decorated by 4 colossal statues. All 4 statues represent Ramses II. The second one on the left was broken onto an earthquake. Happened in Egypt in the year 27 BC. There are 2 blocks on the ground in front of the statue, a piece of the head and a piece of the crown, put as they were found. Because to restore any monument, there should be 70% of it, what we have here, less than 20%, just a piece of the head and a piece of the crown. Instead of adding false piece, they prefer to keep it as it was found. Between the big statues, there are small figures represent members of the royal family. Between the legs, the children, and by the sides, the wives. Above the entrance, the figure of God Ra Hurakti, god of the rising sun, shown in a human body with a falcon face and the sun disk on the head. In the very top, there is a row of little figures. Those are baboons. They notice that every morning when sun rises, baboons usually crying and jumping. They believe that baboons were worshipping or greeting the rising sun every morning. So they made the baboon as the representation of the sun worship. You can see them more clear on the left side in the very, very top. The baboons sitting on their back legs, rising their front paws as they are welcoming or greeting the rising sun. For the inside of the temple, it's not allowed to explain inside, so I explain it here. After that, you will go to see it version. You know, ancient Egyptian temples consisted of many sections. The main sections were 3. The first hall, the second hall, the Holy of Holies, always the first hall is the biggest. Was open for the common people. Everybody was allowed to get in the first hall. The second hall is smaller. Was open for the priests and nobles. The inner room, sanctuary, Holy of Holies, that's the smallest part of the temple, but it was the most sacred part. Was open for the high priest and the king. The high priest was making the daily ceremonies in there. The statue of the god was put in there. Here, this temple has these three sections. In the first hall, there are 8 statues, represent Ramses II, closing his arms to his chest, the feet close together. It is the form of Osiris or Osiris, god of the dead. This was the favorite god to the people. People like this god more than any other god. So we know Ramses refused to be just a king. He wanted to be worshipped as a god. He put himself in the form of this god to make the people worship him. On the walls of the first hall, the scenes are fighting scenes because that hall was open for the people. The king wanted to show them his strength and to tell them about his fighting against the enemies. So in any temple in the first hall, the scenes are always fighting scenes. There are side rooms in the first hall were used as storage rooms for the objects of worship, the offerings and the belongings of the priest. In the second hall, there are 4 square pillars. On the pillars you will see Ramses II standing with the gods, shown in the same size of the gods, to show the people that he is equal to them. On the left side wall and right side wall of the second hall, you will see the procession of the sacred boat, the holy bark. The priests and nobles carrying it on their shoulders, and the people, the king and the queen in front of them, receiving the procession of the boat and making some religious ceremonies. In the inner room, in the sanctuary, you will see the statue of goddess Hathor. The statue, in this temple, in the sanctuary, you will see 4 statues. 4 statues for the 4 gods worshipped in this temple. From the right, Rahu Rakti, god of the rising sun. Ramses II, the king who built the temple, shown as a god there. Amun-Ra, the sun god, and God Bitah, god of underworld and darkness. The interesting thing in there, that the sun illuminates in that room twice a year. The first rays at 6 o'clock in the morning, in the early morning, getting through the door, through the entrance, goes all the way to the inner room, shines on the statues for 20 minutes. At the ancient location, that was happening on 21st of February and 21st of October. After moving the temple up here, because of the height of the new site, it changed into 22nd of February and 22nd of October.
Now that really is amazing. I mean, here you take a look at, they moved this thing up from where it would have been flooded, and still just a few days later, the sun is going to go right back there into the Holy of Holies as it comes in. And here's some Japanese tourists. Yeah, they've got the key to the temple, I think.
These ubiquitous Japanese, they are the greatest travelers in the world.
Oh, that's for
Everywhere
sure.
you go, you see the Japanese people.
And here we also see some graffiti, but this isn't from modern day. Those are from ancient days. But there are, as you can see on the statues here of Ramses, as we get right into the first room, we can see that there have been over the centuries that people have,
Nothing new.
No, it's nothing
They
new
didn't
at
quite
all.
have spray paint in those days.
Thank
but look
goodness.
at the climbing that took too. That was quite high
Yeah.
up.
But
Of
look
course-
at this, Betty. Look at how some of the paint, speaking of paint, and the dyes in the ceiling there have remained for all of these centuries. It's amazing. And we can see that there is scaffolding over here on the side too. So a lot of this is being shored up, even though this was moved some time ago. And these are the pictures that he was talking about that are in the first and the second room. Now, it's interesting to me, I didn't realize, Betty, that the ordinary people, common people, could go into the temple at all. Like he said, the first room where we are right now, and then we're about to go into the second room where he says where the priest, I guess, prepared most of the things that they had. Yeah, and then they and then into the Holy of Holies, into the third room where just just the Pharaoh who considered himself a god, this Pharaoh Ramses.
Wasn't that a kick, really, when you think what an ego trip he was on? To place himself on the same pedestal with the gods, because he considered himself a god too.
Yeah. Well, when you're an absolute ruler, I mean, we've got a few today that I think that
that they are our gods also,
right.
huh?
Now we can see there is the god Ra on the right. Ramses is the second one, and then two other gods on the left hand side, and that is the interior or of the sanctuary, the Holy of Holies. And here you can see again a lot of these pictures that we see here, and some of the gods, of course, with the that you can see with the various headdress that you can see over here. I think that's Horus, isn't it? On the left-hand side.
I find the Egyptians it's wonderful their respect for death, and it's such a ceremonial thing that they go through when somebody dies, and you see it's depicted in all of the writings that they have, the hieroglyphics and the pictures and stuff. And Marvin, the tombs too, they put models of their servants, and they had food, and they even made models of bakeries and breweries and stuff like that they had, because they truly figured that these little miniature models, they were going to come to life, and they would be able to serve the person that was in the tomb as faithful and in death as in life.
Right. And we'll see more of that as we get up to, when we go up to Cairo, where we actually will visit the pyramids where the tombs were. But I think here in this area of Abu Simbel, I believe that these were, of course, these were not burial chambers, but these were just temples to, well, like you say, like to the gods. And of course, Ramses made himself considered himself a god here. But I've got to say that it's so hard to believe that this is in such great state of being right now. Because
aren't they beautiful too? Look at the faces. They were Egyptian people, and are absolutely
very handsome people.
Handsome people. Their features are so beautiful. Who is it? The one that's the movie star, the Egyptian Omar Sharif.
Sharif,
Yeah, good example. I mean, it's come on down, but they really are. And you think how many years before Christ was this?
Well, I think this was 1,000 years before if I'm not
Christ.
mistaken.
So look at, that's a long time ago.
It sure is, yeah. And of course, now what we're looking at is the temple that was dedicated to his wife, Nefertiti. And this was also just really magnificent. When you figure how high these statues are, these carvings, and you figure also, now you can see a little bit of that above them, some of the lines there, because they actually took and sawed these things into blocks. There, I believe, is
to
her
bring them
picture.
on down.
Yeah, so that they could take them out. Otherwise, this would have all been lost, and it would all be now in Lake Nasser, and it would have just been swallowed up with water. But all these various nations got together and put these millions of dollars together so that this could be saved, for all time. I think is just absolutely incredible.
In the cooperation of all of them, quite a number of nations submitted plans. And they finally ended up with the engineering project of the Swedish government. They had the most feasible one and the least expensive. And when you think in terms of what it cost and the engineering feat that it was fairly reasonable amount of money to do this.
And they did it like he said, in a reasonable short period of time. I did see a videotape of that. They did a documentary on and documented the whole process, and it was really quite interesting. But and in fact, when we were looking at the first thing that we had taken a look at, we saw that, oh golly, well, one of those is all broken. Maybe that happened. But then he said, no, that was broken during an earthquake. And so that's how it was originally when it was down in its original place. So they wanted that exactly as it had been found. And so it was nice that they kept the authenticity.
That was a good touch, I think, just to leave it as it was rather than try to camouflage it by making something to fit in the way it was.
Right. And again, another amazing thing is that these carvings in the wall, I called them paintings, I think, earlier, but these carvings in the wall have stayed so beautiful and so great right down to today. This, to me, Betty, was one of the highlights of going to Egypt and taking our cruise on the Nile, and of course we had to fly over to Abu Simbel. It was quite some distance from Aswan, and there isn't much here. I mean, this is it.
That's it.
This is it. And there's a small little village here, and that's about it. But as we can see now, and he mentioned too, there's the baboons,
Yeah,
of course, up above. They had built the mountain behind this, or what this is kind of resting into, is actually a dome, a steel dome. And I thought, how did they do this? Well, now we're inside the steel dome here, and there's a guide, I think, again with the Japanese here, giving an explanation of how this was constructed and how it's put together. But you can see, to get now out of this area,
It's like a tunnel almost.
Yeah, well, that's what we're going to get into,
Yeah.
right? But look, see, here's the dome itself, and this is behind the
That's
the
the mountain
big four
on the
statues.
outside.
That's right. Yeah, and the statues would have been just right there on the left-hand side. And this to me was I wasn't prepared for this. I thought it was just a solid mountain, until all of a sudden, bingo, here we are. And so we're going to follow Ralph here to get out. But you can see there is still part of some real rocks that are here, but they just kind of hooded that over. And yeah, to get out of
Here
here,
we go.
you're right. You have to go through a tunnel, and it
The
was
eye
rather
of the tunnel.
it was rather nice because it was nice and cool in there. So we're going to look back to the area that we just came out of, and of course you can see the lake there in the background. And when we flew over there, I could not believe how huge this lake is. I mean, it is absolutely. It looked to me like an ocean. It was so big. But we're going to go from here, and we're going to fly back to our beautiful
look at-
hotel.
Yeah, what a contrast. Huh? Oh, wow.
Well, it shows you how things can bloom if you've got a little bit of water. And this was wonderful. We stayed at a very, very nice hotel here in Aswan, and it was nice to have the air conditioning. And I said, that water looks so inviting. And it was. I did go swimming. It was wonderful. Look at some of the paintings.
The hotel was, I would guess, maybe 5.5 stars. I
Yeah.
don't think there was such a thing. But it was truly, truly an elegant hotel. We were coming kind of late in the season, so there weren't a lot of people there, which
Thank
made
goodness.
it very nice for
Right.
us. But everything, all of the decorations, the floors of marble, it was it was elegant.
It was. And also the evening that we had dinner there too was wonderful. I mean, that was a 4
That's
or 5 star
all
restaurant.
part of the
really.
trip. We do a good job, Mark.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'll go back anytime. I'll
I
tell
was
you.
real pleased. Yeah, almost all of the accommodations were very, very fine, and I like the idea, like us flying down to Abu Simbel like we did. We didn't use that as an extra. That was included.
That was included, right,
That
right.
was
It was
so
not
that
an
was
add-on, right.
included into it. So that way everybody got to take advantage of it and go down.
That's right. We are going to now. This is the front of the hotel, looking toward Aswan, and there's a little fountain here. And we had mentioned in earlier programs there was a cemetery that was kind of right down just a little ways from there. I don't think that we have in this particular program shots of that, but there is quite large, and I think the cemetery was something like 800 years old. But you can see how arid this is. All of the area around Aswan is it's pretty dry, but this is downtown
Yeah,
Aswan.
big deal. But Mark, you
No
wonder,
skyscrapers.
I wonder about that hotel. I mean, was that? I really don't know too much about it. Was that a privately owned hotel? Do you know? Was it a
think so.
chain? And why in the world did they build such an elaborate hotel in the middle of almost nowhere?
Well, you have to. I mean, that's what kind of we would figure when we looked at it offhand. But you have to figure this is a big trading center. I mean,
lot of money
Aswan
has
was
there.
yeah,
Sure,
there is.
you're right.
Yeah. And we're going to go down and take a ride on a felucca. Now, a felucca is one of these boats with, I think, the funny-looking sails, but actually they're really quite beautiful when you see them out. And here we see them out here. This is really very, very nice. So we're going to get in, and we do have a guide here that's going to take us around, and we're going to also, on today's program, we're going to take a look at the mausoleum of the Aga Khan, and he's going to explain it to us as we go
Sail
take our
away
sail
into the
away.
sunset.
So if you're all set, let's climb on board and let's take our little ride around the water.
We're going to sail around Elephantine Island. We see the Aga Khan's mausoleum from the boat. We sail and dock by the Botanical Garden Island. Then we have a walk, some exercise across the island. We catch the boat from the other end and sail around and get back toward the Opera Hotel.
Bob's gonna go sit
Well, they let the sail down, so we're going to catch the breeze. And this was kind of late in the afternoon, and it was nice. And there was a lovely breeze at this time, so that it wasn't too terribly warm. It was warm, but it was still a nice breeze.
Fun after being out there in the hot desert, though. It was a wonderful relief from the heat.
Mm-hmm.
It was great.
And there's a lot to see here, so let's take a real close look.
Chief of British architects who built the Aswan Dam.
What was his name?
Captain Wilcox.
Wilcox. And he built the Aswan Dam.
The Aswan Dam.
Englishman?
English.
the little dam.
And Lord Kitchener stayed there for a while. Aswan was the name of the city and the name of the province. It was called by ancient Egyptians Sono, and Sono means market. It was a marketplace for ivory which was imported from the Sudan. Then it was called Siena in the Ptolemaic period, and that came from Greek word Sianitis. Sianitis in Greek language means hard, polished stone. Mountains in Aswan on the east bank of the Nile River, they are all granite stone. Then it was called Swan in the Coptic period, and that gave the modern name of Aswan. But the first capital was located on that island, and that was called by ancient Egyptians Abo. Abo means ivory and means elephant. It was so called because rock formation around the island, they look like elephants. In the 18th dynasty, Amnophi III built a great temple, was dedicated to the god Khnum, the sacred ram-headed god.
Betty, there's so much to see here, and we're going to take a look too at the mausoleum of the Aga Khan. Remember, was he the father-in-law of Rita Hayward?
You are right. You are right.
And he was the guy that weighed there it is right there.
Oh,
he was the guy that weighed about 290 pounds or something, and then he sat on one side of the scale, and then they filled the other side with precious gems and things for his birthday or something.
Sure,
like
you
that,
talk
right?
about the guy thinking Ramses thinking he was a god. we have a mortal person here too, thinking he was a god.
Oh boy!
And they did treat him with a great deal of respect.
Yeah, that's true. And this is a place where he wanted to be buried. I think he came here for vacation. Something our guide's going to explain it to us, I think, a little bit later on. But this was magnificent. The stories about him, and I remember seeing pictures and reading about him. But let's listen more now about this particular island that we're going to take a look at.
Tin Island, which was the capital of the first district. Ancient Egyptians built their houses with mud bricks. Even parts of the kingdom queens were built with mud bricks. They built a house to last for a generation, 50 or 100 years. When it lasted no longer, they used to tear it down, but they never took debris away. They kept them in and left about half a meter as a foundation for new building. So they kept building houses up on earlier houses, and generations lived on earlier generations' houses. When they excavated that area, they found antiques dates back from the 45th century before Christ.
Oh, that's something that goes back that many centuries. But this is just one of the areas, and on some more shows we're going to get into on the other side. When we go on the other side of the dam, we'll go and see in Lake Nasser. There's another whole temple area too. Betty, this is a thing that just keeps surprising me.
Yeah.
Is that there are more and more things that I read about in the itinerary. Oh, okay, we're going to see this and see this, but the surprises that we have.
How about that Club Med hotel there?
Isn't that nice? And look at the
elephants.
The elephants. Yeah, that. These rocks do remind you of elephants.
Imagination.
Yes, indeed. A good imagination, and some of the area there derived its name at one time from that as well.
Look at the sand there
Isn't
with the
that
water, huh?
something? Yeah.
How about that?
That is really great. But in here, as we see more of those rocks, it looks like a herd of elephants just became petrified?
Well, I
Would that
don't
be it?
know. I think you have to stretch your imagination a little bit to think of them as elephants. I mean, there was one I saw that looked like it had a trunk, but the rest of them looked like they packed their trunk and left. I don't.
Well, just keep looking. I think as we go along, we see a lot of that, and some papyrus growing there with the fuzzy tops. And
The
just a lot of things
contrast
that
of the lushness of the island as compared to the sand dunes that we were just witnessing.
right, right, yeah. That's the amazing thing about
Oh,
this.
water, you are wonderful.
Yes, what would you do without it? Look at that. Isn't that something? Now
Now
there's
you saw
your
that
postcard.
those were elephants. Now, see, that looks like the where they
Well,
put
this
the
looks like a little
blimp
bit of
down
an
in San Francisco, out of San Francisco. See, the way, imagination.
Well, that's true. I guess you can use it. I just wonder if there's a lot of fish in these waters. You know, I didn't see anybody fishing around here, but there may have been, because I think that a lot of these people were fishing when
I don't
we
think
did see
you
them fishing with nets.
Yeah, I don't think you
know.
fished the time of day that we were out there. Anyway,
Probably
you
not,
know,
yeah.
there's only hours to
Well, let's
fish.
listen a little bit more now and find out about the Aga Khan.
Aga Khan was born in Karachi in Pakistan in 1877. When he was 9 years old, his father died. He became the leader of Ismailis. Ismailis are Muslim Shiites. His followers were 12 million in his lifetime. Most of them live in Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, Iraq, Iran, but there are none here in Egypt at all. All Egyptian Muslims are Muslim Sunnis. He came to Aswan in 1943. He was suffering from rheumatism. Because of that, he couldn't move, and he moved in wheelchair. He stayed in the Cataract Hotel. He was taken by Fuluka to the west bank of the Nile River, where he was cured from rheumatism by sand bath. They buried his legs with dry sand. Within few days, he was cured from rheumatism. He liked the area so much, and he came every winter. He bought that villa, yellowish, from government, and he stayed there with his wife. He recommended his followers, if he died anywhere, he should be buried here in Aswan. He passed away in Versoix, Switzerland, 1957. They brought his body and buried him by the villa first. Then they built the mausoleum. It took them 18 months to build it. His followers came from all over the world. They moved the body in a big pilgrim day like pilgrimage of Mecca. He was buried up there in 1959. He lived for 80 years. Quite like a guy. In his 25th jubilee, he got his weight in silver. In his 40s in gold. His 50s in diamond. His 52nd in platinum. He was 295 pounds weight. He had 4 wives. First one from Iran. He divorced her when he was alive. Second one was Italian. She was the mother of Ali Khan, who married Rita Hayworth, the American movie star. Ali was killed in automobile crash in Paris, and he's buried in Syria.
Well, so we got a little history lesson there, huh? About the Aga Khan. That was something. Well, listen, that's about all the time that we have. If you're interested in any of our trips, give Betty a call at 488-7443. It's time for us to say goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.